entertainment, insights. Don't take life too seriously. Welcome to Brainsky Unleashed. Hello and welcome again to Brainsky Unleashed. Today we are being joined by Michael Fried. Michael Fried, I think, is going to be a very interesting guest today because, boy, this guy is unique. He's a comedian who happens to be a litigator that doesn't seem to like to not run. So there's a lot going on here, and I thought this would be absolutely fascinating for everyone to listen to. So welcome to the show, Michael.
Thanks for having me. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. So, Michael, first of all, I want to just ask you, how in the world do you go from law, right? I mean, lawyers are just not typically your most entertaining types, I guess, to being able to depart from that and go stand on a stage and make people laugh. How the hell does that work?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a natural path towards it. I mean, we all have passions and maybe things that we'd like to pursue, and basically the short answer is, I'm a litigator, been doing that for, gosh, over 30 years. But started pursuing comedy actively about 4.5, 5 years ago. Had always been, I would say, a closeted comedian. Always been a fan of comedy. I grew up in the theater, doing dinner theaters and some national tours of some musicals, but sort of gave that up and went on to the legal practice, which obviously is a practice generally for extroverts, particularly litigators. So there's a theatrical component, not much of a comedic component, but it doesn't hurt to be able to diffuse tense situations with jokes. But there's plenty of inappropriate places to use humor in the law as well. So really, always wanted to scratch that itch. I had a secretary for a number of years who kind of became like a mother and a sister and a good friend to me, and she said, you've always wanted to do this comedy thing. Why don't you give it a try? And I did. Went through a little workshop and had the little graduation show, and that was going to be one and done. But the owner of the club, which was a decent club that brings in a lot of high level comedians, said, you're pretty good at this. Why don't you stick with it? And if you do, I'll make you one of my regular MCs. And started that, and it's a little disjointed path from there to here, but that is the short version.
But what is more fun for you? Because some people really like litigation. Which do you actually enjoy more?
I'm blessed to really enjoy just about everything that I do. I love solving problems, which is what I see litigating as, not necessarily being the pit bull that people describe, although there's certainly a need for that gear from time to time. So I do love what I do, and am blessed to make a decent living doing it. Comedy is fun. It's also painful. I mean, it's definitely a love hate relationship with comedy, much like I imagine professional athletes have with some of their sports. I've always admired baseball players, never been one, but the fact that they get up and fail as much, if not more, than they succeed is an awful lot like comedy is. I mean, especially when you're trying out a new joke or a new audience, and not every comedy performance is a five-star comedy club. Some of them are bowling alleys or pizza restaurants
Yeah.
or bars where people didn't even know they were coming to hear comedy. And to get up with just you and a microphone and a bunch of inebriated people and communicate something that you created, original joke, and try to move them in a way that makes them laugh, with you, at you, in some way that's positive. I hate to use the word courage because I think it's overused and should be reserved for things like fighting in the military, which is truly courageous. But it's the most courageous thing I've ever done. And I love getting up and knowing that on the other side of what I'm about to say could be great success or failure. And of course, when there's success, that's what keeps you coming back for more.
And so when you have a night where you just know that you have bombed,
Mm.
it just doesn't go well. You're not even able to get a laugh out of the audience. It's that bad. How does that affect you?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the day. I can't tell you it isn't disturbing from time to time. I assume a lot of my comedic friends and the other misfits I hang out with are, largely, young, daytime Uber driving men and women that tell jokes about their body parts, and I don't have a lot in common other than We're both trying to make people laugh. I think for some of them, and I don't mean to diminish their jokes, some of them are really, really funny and will be much more successful than I'll probably ever be. But that is their main gig. And the fact that I can wake up the next day, put on a suit, go to work, and get a paycheck probably takes away some of the sting, but you do take it personal. I mean, when you create something that's designed for a particular purpose and it goes the exact opposite way, yeah, it can be debilitating. At least to make me think, why am I out here at 10:30 tonight on a work night when I could be sleeping or home or doing something that I know what the result will be. But so far, at least, there's enough successes that the failures, which are inevitable. I mean, when you're trying out a new joke, it's not going to generally be perfect or sometimes even good, and you need that feedback from an audience that something's not funny, or that you could change a word and do it differently the next night to sort of improve the process and turn it into something good if it has that potential.
Do you find it hard because I'm sure there's some types of humor that you probably don't wade into because you have a full-time job that has you in front of a lawyer, I mean, in front of other lawyers and a judge?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really about two rules of comedy, maybe more, but two for me anyway. One is it has to be authentic. Anything that we do has to be authentic. So I can tell jokes about raising five kids. I could tell jokes about you know being a lawyer by day if I choose to go there. I could tell jokes about being twice divorced or things that are my narrative, because it's authentic, and hopefully I can find some humor in it, and it resonates with the audience, either because that's them or they know someone with that situation or their parents, what have you. And so I tend not to curse a lot and talk about my body parts
Right.
most of the day. So I'm not going to bring those jokes into my repertoire for the most part. Some of the stuff I do is a little edgier. So that's basically my primary rule. Then it's got to be funny. I don't mind people telling jokes about whatever political subjects, some cultural issues, sex if that's what they want to joke about.
Yeah.
Um, but it's got to be funny.
Yeah.
And
And
so once I
you don't
get
wanna
through
wade
those
into
two
those
filters,
waters.
what's that?
And you don't wanna wade into those waters.
No, I mean, yeah, it's not wise for me to do it
Yeah.
for a variety of reasons. And usually those first two filters keep me from getting to the third filter, which is, I have clients that are kind enough
Yeah.
to hire us, and not just me, but my colleagues. And so, putting content out there that um, is offensive or might offend is not really a good idea. But it's pretty easy for me because most of my jokes are self-deprecating,
Yeah.
hopefully a little intellectual, and not likely to offend.
Self-deprecation. Now, this is something I know really well because I'm totally unafraid to do any kind of self-deprecation myself. Um, do you find that self-deprecation humor actually, tends to get better laughs than, say, penis jokes?
Yeah, I mean, again, back to authenticity. I mean, it's got to be who I am. There are cocky comics, no pun intended, who,
Ah,
yeah, sorry, who, the Andrew Dice Clays of the world,
yeah,
or others that, are sort of, if not arrogant, at least hesitant to be self-critical or
yeah,
self-aware. Their jokes are always have somebody else be the punchline. And so, if that's who they are, that can be really funny. For me, the self-deprecation works to a point. I've gotten feedback from some audiences and some audience members and even friends and a girlfriend who came and said, I think you make fun of yourself a little too much. It's like I didn't laugh with you. I felt sorry for you. And so I think sometimes, I mean, you can't please everybody, but I think self-deprecation, people laugh at folks that are funny, but they also laugh at people who are relatable and, let's say, likable.
yeah,
I mean, those are generally, I'm sure there's exceptions to what I just said. Andrew Dice Clay's, one. But you got to like the person more or less. And if I'm going to get up, some of my sets are like I'm doing one tonight that's 10 minutes. So I don't have a lot of time to have them get to know me. If I could
right.
stand up and say something quickly that says, oh, this guy knows that he's, a short, funny looking bald guy. Let's see what he's got to say. Now I've got him, and then I can bring him on a journey.
Now you mentioned that you had a girlfriend,
Hmm.
and she felt that you were being a little too self-deprecating, felt bad for you.
Right.
Does that translate to such sympathy when it comes to intimacy? Do you end up feeling like she wants to give you more because of that?
Not my girlfriend. No, my
Oh,
girlfriend.
yeah.
My girlfriend has high standards for me and for her, and she's good about calling out greatness in me. So I've got
Nice.
that works
Resulting.
fine. It is funny because I met her. Well, I met her on a dating app, but she had seen me do comedy, and so when she saw my photo on the dating app, one of which I think had me doing comedy, she's like, "Oh, I've seen that guy before," but I don't think she was, like, overwhelmed with my comedy, as but it was memorable, and she did remember that I told a lotta jokes that I was the brunt of it, and yeah, I guess that's right. I mean, if you're looking at someone as a potential romantic interest or an actual romantic interest, if they're up there every night telling people how funny looking they are or how stupid they are, you gotta go home with them.
May have an effect, right?
It may
I
have
mean,
an effect.
even though it's comedy, it may have an effect.
Yeah.
So self-deprecation, I mean, again, you know, I live and breathe self-deprecation
You're a
at
very
times.
handsome man. What are you talking
I
about?
mean, listen, I can't argue the truth, Your Honor, seriously. Um, but that usually comes from somewhere. I mean, were you, like, picked on as a kid? Because that was a way that I was able to figure out how to overcome all the little assholes in school that would treat me like crap, is
Mhm.
I found a way of using a little bit of self-deprecation so that way their crap would just bounce off of me like Teflon.
Right.
Did you have anything like that?
Oh, sure. I mean, we are both on video, so we can't see each other. But I have a feeling you are height deficient as I am, or at least I am short.
Yep.
And yeah, I was never the captain of the football team, or on the football team, or bringing
Yep.
water to the football team.
Right. Yep.
So
Didn't qualify
yeah,
for that either. Yeah.
I mean, I always did two things and everybody's always getting bullied to some degree. I've got kids now, and they come up with new ways to bully each other,
Oh, they're all
but
such little assholes. Oh
they
my
are.
god.
We are, and so I
Yeah.
had insecurities, and what I would do is first I would always befriend really big people. I've done that throughout my life. I'm friends with professional athletes now. I was friends with the athletes in college and so forth. And two, yeah, I would definitely try to make people laugh, and make them laugh. Hopefully with me, but with at me, so that
Yeah.
they knew
Yeah.
I didn't take myself too seriously. Because
Yeah.
that's pretty much why people bully. They bully to sort of bring you down to size. If you're
And
already there.
it's such an easy target for people who just take it. They accept that and they take the abuse and it's like, "Oh, this is such an easy target. I'm going for another hit."
Mhm.
Whereas, when you could laugh at yourself and it's just no big deal. It's like none of your
Yeah.
punches are actually landing.
Yeah, and I think most people understand that. I mean, you and I speak the same language. I think sometimes, and I've noticed this with people that have gotten close to me that are from other cultures, um, sometimes they think that my self-deprecation in ordinary conversation um, is a lack of confidence, or that maybe they need to, no, no, you're not really that way, and that's not what I'm looking for at all. I actually
Yeah.
am quite confident on the things I'm good at. I'm also quite knowledgeable at the things I'm not good at. I'm not tall, and I can't work harder to get taller, and so making fun of my height is not, I'm not hurt by it. The fact that I have no hair is not a weak point. It's just a description of me. But I do think sometimes people feel like they need to pity that, and
Yeah.
obviously that's not the desired effect at all.
Right. So another question I had in my mind because yeah, I even my cousin, phenomenal, famous litigator in Massachusetts. Um, at some point, when it comes to litigation and lawyers, you have some lawyers who mainly will stick to, like, say, real estate law or things where you're not fighting necessarily in a courtroom. But if you're a damn good litigator, there's a high probability that you learn to argue at an early age, or you were married and learned to argue.
Yeah.
Where did that skill come from?
Oh, wow, that's a deep question. Um,
That's why I asked.
yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, the answer is somewhat personal, at least the one that's most obvious to me. And I'm a little hesitant to share, but I will,
Oh, thank
because
you.
my father just passed away about a month and a half ago, and good guy, miss him dearly, and I was married to my mother for 61 years, almost 61 years, and she's still living
Mm,
and lives down the road. So, with that homage to my parents, I'll say that they didn't always have what I perceive to be the best marriage. They
yes.
did argue, bicker, whatever you want to call it, and as a young person, whether they invited me into it or whether I just invited myself into it, I don't know. It's probably a question for a therapist or something.
Probably.
But I took it upon myself to be the referee, and I was a shuttle diplomat in my house. I didn't like the sound of arguing and yelling,
Mhm.
and maybe it was just healthy. I've not been able to stay married, so far be it from me to criticize their marriage. But I did. I remember vividly. I'd go to my mom's where my mom was and try to understand her side of things, and I'd go into my dad's room and explain it. And so I wasn't arguing or even advocating, although maybe I was advocating for peace. But I was, trying to broker a deal, and
Yeah.
that was I think I developed that skill at a really young age, probably unhealthily, and then I've used it in other aspects of growing up, whether it was an organization I was part of, whether it was being part of a friend group where there was a challenge or anything like that. But I think that's where it came from.
Interesting though that you say that because you're brokering a deal. You've understood the art of a deal. I think there's a book named that.
I've heard
Maybe
that.
famous.
I've heard
Yeah,
that.
maybe
Yes, I
famous.
forget
Yeah.
the author, but
If I say the author, half the audience will be offended.
yeah,
Um, the other half will be cheering. So take it for what it's worth.
it is a
Um,
book by a person.
yes, someone did something and it's famous.
Yes,
But interesting though because you went ahead and you learned very early on how to see both sides of an argument and understand that. And so, from a litigating standpoint, you can probably use that to your advantage and be able to create arguments around arguments to enforce it and land direct punches in a courtroom. So, I mean, I guess a good takeaway from this would be the fact that you can take a really crappy situation and do some damn good stuff with it. And
sure.
I don't think a lot of people recognize that you can do that, even though, yeah, at the time it's probably never fun, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different ways to look at that, and probably a handful of you know sermons and bumper stickers and everything in between. But the one that I remember the most is hearing a pastor once say that we sometimes think that things are in the way. This crisis, this problem, this part of my experience, this home situation. But it's not always, in fact, it's never in the way because it's there. It is the way. I mean,
Right.
whatever you're going to get to next, it's going to go through that. And whether it's a horrible physical assault or psychological abuse or bankruptcy or poverty or any number of failures that we all have on our paths to somewhere, hopefully past that success. Um, you can just survive it, or you can try to learn and grow from it. And certainly in my best moments, that's what I've tried to do.
No, I mean, obviously it's worked out for you. I mean, think about this. You have comedy that's come from it, right?
Sure.
Because anytime you're in any kind of suffering in any way, usually comedy is a great, outlet for it. But then again, you also used it for your professional career, which is pretty amazing. And it's obviously working out for you because I mean, not that I was stalking you or
Mhm.
anything, but obviously I did a little bit of a little bit of homework, and you're good at what you do. So, it's good for you. So maybe you want to thank the parents for all the crap that they threw at
Oh
you along
gosh,
the
I'm
way.
so grateful for
Thank you guys for all the hell that you've put me through. It's one of those things, right?
well, they did things other than argue. They
Yeah.
they were good parents for sure. And having become a parent myself, I've realized that we're all just kind of making this up as we go along. I think there's this sense when you're a kid that parents are these adults who have it all figured out,
Nope.
and we're all various stages of brokenness, just kind
Yeah.
of making it up as we go. And if you have a good heart and whatever can offer unconditional love and a few sort of constant positives, then the other stuff will hopefully be okay. But yeah, on reflection, I have a lot of empathy for my parents.
Brainsky Unleashed is powered by ProfitMax. Did you know that 93% of businesses overpay on their taxes? Do you pay too much in taxes? A recent study showed that businesses are overpaying between 34 and 71%. ProfitMax is proven, legal tax strategy solutions to reduce your tax burden. I'm not only a client, but I even joined the team to help other business owners just like me pay only their fair share and nothing more. Go to profitmax.co. That's profitmax.co. Profitmax.co to find out more. You can even connect with me there, as you should. And I'll help make sure that your tax bill is legally as low as allowed. ProfitMax. Keep your cash. Isn't it tough though? Like when, because I have kids too, and my kids are younger, and it's like, they look at you as a parent and they think that you are, the be all, know all, they put you up on a pedestal, not because they want to, but it's just the nature of how it is. And it's like, you want to be able to tell your kids, listen, I'm just a mess, but you can't do that at certain ages, of course. And so you kind of have to thread that needle, which makes parenting all that more exciting because let's be honest, as you've said, and it is true, we just make it up as we go along. I mean, we're just
Yeah,
constantly growing up,
yeah. I think we cloak people with whatever uniforms and titles, and think that that makes them the thing that they are, masquerading as or aspiring to be. And obviously, all it takes to be a parent is to have a kid that you're responsible for. Doesn't
Oh,
make you a good parent.
nope, nope. But it makes you a parent, and
Yeah,
whatever that definition is what it is, right?
it is one of the easiest things to become.
Oh, isn't it? Well, it's one of the most fun things to become, and all the fun stops usually right after that, at least for a while.
At least for the man. I'm not so sure the woman would agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
So let me ask you this: there are people out there who may be listening, and if there's anyone listening, that makes it even more important. But there may be people out there listening who have to at some point get an attorney, and I have had phenomenal advice in my life from attorneys who I happen to be related to. What would you say is like the number one thing that anyone should do when they are seeking an attorney?
mhm. Well, I think word of mouth is important, of course, there's different reasons people hire lawyers. The ones that are most visible, not necessarily to your listeners, which I presume are a lot of business people or people interested in business concepts. But we all see the back of your phone book, if we still have a phone book, or the billboards, or if you watch TV with commercials, you see
Yeah.
the personal injury lawyers. The business to consumer lawyers are the most obvious ones, and as a result, understandably, they advertise. I would say if you need that type of lawyer, I would still not start with those. There are some good lawyers in every market, and some of them are national firms now that advertise. But just because someone advertises doesn't mean they're one of the better lawyers. There's a whole bunch of nuances to that. A lot of them refer business out to other firms. They really are more and often in the advertising business more than they're in the lawyering business. So even for them, and especially for business to business, word of mouth is so important. I mean, I would, if I needed a lawyer and wasn't one, I would ask you, who have you used? And if it's a, sibling or a friend that's a good lawyer, that's a good start. And, I tend to be a clearinghouse for my friends. I have a 300 lawyer firm. So there's an awful lot of
Massive.
expertise within my firm.
Yeah.
But we can't do everything. And I refer a lot of work out to people in other markets. And even within my market, if you needed a lawyer for a particular thing that we don't do, again, another lawyer that from your whatever kid's soccer game, or wherever someone from, good starting point. There are places that you can look to vouch for lawyers. I'd look at their website, see if it's decent quality, because if they can't put together a good website, and without spelling errors and so forth, then that's a starting point as well. I would look at their credentials. Not that good lawyers don't go to lesser law schools, but if you're familiar with particular institutions in your market or nationally, again, those are going to be good things. There's something called Martindale Hubble, which is sort of a lawyer to lawyer peer review mechanism. And there's highest standard within Martindale Hubble for both ethics and competency. And so after about 10 years rather, you would expect a lawyer to assuming they've impressed their colleagues as being good, ethical, competent lawyers, um, to be on that list. So those are some really good starting points. And I would not hire. Nobody wants to be a brain surgeon's first patient. At my firm, we have plenty of younger lawyers, but they're working under the supervision of younger lawyers. So all else equal, you'd probably rather not hire someone who's just gotten out of law school, and hung up a shingle. Again, not that some great lawyers don't do that and evolve from that process. But those are the types of things I would look for, and also to make sure that the people have experience in what you need. If you need a litigator, then obviously make sure they're used to litigating contracts or shareholder disputes or employment disputes. If you need contract reviewed, is it an entertainment contract? Is it an asset purchase agreement? Is it an employment agreement? Those are very different things. And then last, I don't think it's a bad idea to ask for references, and maybe even call. If somebody asked me that, I would ask a client's permission, but I think that's a good way to start. Yeah, just because somebody has a degree and has an office. The thing about law, which is interesting, and it's not true in really any other profession that I'm aware of, is that when we graduate law school, we can do anything. We could practice legally any area of the law. I could go, try a criminal case for somebody who's facing, decades in jail. I would not be competent to do that, but I could. I could go do that tomorrow. Again, I would not be competent to do that, but I could. Um,
Ethically, that would be a real problem, I would imagine.
It'd just be a bad idea.
Yeah.
There is board certification. I'm board certified in business litigation. There's not. It's like 1% of lawyers in Florida go through the board certification process, but you don't have to do it. Doctors generally are board certified in a particular specialty. They need it for privileges and things of that sort.
Mhm.
So if you got a certain problem, you want to make sure that the lawyer is not just trying to, pay their bills that month, but they actually have experience with what you need.
Yeah, that background. Okay. Now you also run a lot.
I
Can
do.
you at least
Yeah.
talk a little bit about why
Mhm.
you run so much?
Yeah. I mean, I run to raise money, although I have fallen in love with running along the way. So about 8 years ago, I think it was 2016. I always say it was such a divisive time. The election was underway, and it seemed to me that things were more divisive than they ever had been, and I thought ever would be. And
Yeah.
of course, I didn't realize that was just the beginning.
Mm.
I just had a moment where I wanted to find something that everybody could be for and nobody could be against. And I was sitting in a park in Jacksonville where there was a lot of homelessness. And I thought, gosh, there's so many people that have to get up each day and have all these challenges that are just would be insurmountable if I woke up the next day with those challenges. So what could I do to help the indigent community? And since I was already a lawyer and sensitive to the fact that there's this justice gap where there's so many people that need legal services just to be pointed in the right direction with something that could be life changing for them. That helping indigent to fund legal aid, which provides services for indigent people, is what I wanted to do. And so I said, what could I do that's big? Because if I just do something little, another 5K, whatever, a gala or something like that. You could ask people for a little bit of money, and people are kind of galled and golf tournamented out. So I decided in that moment that I would run across the state. Now I was not a runner to that point, and that's why it seemed like a big idea. If I call up someone that knows me and say, "Hey, I'm running across the state to raise money for indigent people," they'd be like, "You don't run, do you?" And I was really like, "No, but I care that much about this cause that I'm going to do it." And so some brainstorming followed, but basically what I did then for the next 7 years was run 6 marathons over 6 days from Tallahassee to Jacksonville, courthouse to courthouse, to raise money for legal aid. And it was so successful in the first year, really just with me and a couple of friends popping in and my wife at the time and my girls driving ahead of me. We raised about $67,000 in year one. And the foundation was so enthralled with what we had done that they said, "Hey, would you earmark that money for a medical legal partnership to provide funding for indigent people that need legal services to help them resolve healthcare challenges.
Hmm.
And they said, we would like to match whatever you raise 125%. And I said,
Wow.
that's exactly what I want to do.
Wow.
And so over the next 6 years thereafter, we were able to raise $2.25 million by me doing that run. And then we got a bus sponsor, and people came out and ran with me each day, and teams participated. And so we fully funded that endowment, which is called the North Florida Medical Legal Partnership. And we use the interest to fund a lawyer who provides that service to the medical community and to pediatric patients in particular. So this year, we're adding a second event and a second endowment. This year, it's going to be a 24-hour run. So 24-hour run, which I've done several 24-hour runs. They're interesting. You get a little delusional in the middle of the night. Again, inviting teams to participate, and we're seeking to raise another $2.25 million over the next handful of years to raise money for what's called Shelter for Elders, which focuses on wraparound legal services for the indigent senior homeless community. So people can find out more at Freed to Run, FREEDTO run.com. And we're running November 17th and 18th. So I do
Coming
run
right
a
up.
lot, but it's just about always to train or to support Freed to Run.
I mean, that in itself is beautiful what you're doing for people. I could not do what you do. I can't run to the mailbox without wondering why I'm running.
Mhm.
The fact that you're going to run for 24 hours is insane. Again, if there's anyone that actually wants to, get involved, by all means, please go to Free to Run. I think it's a beautiful cause that you've got set up. Um, Man, just the idea of that is, I'm tired thinking about
Mhm.
running 24 hours. So can you settle this?
Sure.
Very important.
Mhm.
What is the best running shoe?
Oh, well, it's personal to the person. I wear and have for several years, and I always mispronounce it, but I think is it Saucony? Saucony?
Is it Saucony?
I sh
Saucony?
if
I don't
they start
know.
giving me free shoes, I'll learn how to pronounce their name,
That's a great idea.
but there's a
Guarantee
local
them
running
that you'll
store.
pronounce it right if they give you free shoes.
Yeah, yeah, but I'm not deliberately mispronouncing it. I
Yeah,
just don't know.
yeah.
But everybody's foot is different. And so I recommend, buying local, staying local. So wherever you are, go to a local good running shoe. They'll usually have a treadmill, or maybe they'll even just let you take a pair of shoes and run around the store. And we'll tell you whether you pronate or super pronate, and whether you have a narrow foot or a wide foot, whether you need an insert. And it's something that's not, you don't want to skimp on. Once you find the shoe you want, if you want to buy a second pair of them online, you can do that. But I support First Place Sports here in Jacksonville. They do a great job, and always seem to find just the right shoe for me. And I'm not, I have trouble even considering myself an athlete. But what my superpower seems to be, I recover really quickly, and I shouldn't say this out loud, but my feet don't blister or get worn out. And so I ran in a 24-hour run up in North Carolina, the
Mm,
Hinson Lake 24-hour challenge a couple weeks ago, and I ran over 70 miles, and my feet looked great when I was done. So
that's amazing.
getting the right shoe and training well is important.
That is the fact that your feet are not, like, completely abused after that is a miracle, but that's also a testament to the shoe, obviously.
I think so. I mean, there's little things I do on long runs, like I put a petroleum-based product on it, which is basically like udder cream that they would
Mm.
use for cows. Kind of looks like Vaseline, and that certainly helps quite a bit as well.
And you put them on the feet or on the, like,
I put it on my feet underneath the socks, believe it or not, and then about every 30 miles I reapply it.
I was gonna say, doesn't that kind of feel gross though?
A little bit, but everything feels gross when you're running for
I mean,
24
I
hours.
suppose it's, again, I don't understand. I run to the mailbox and there's my
Mm.
exercise. Very exciting. And the only reason I'm running the mailbox is because it's raining.
Right, right. And you
I
could have won the
mean,
lottery or something.
why would you do it on a sunny day? It just, you take your
Well,
time on a sunny day. You know what I mean?
it certainly has taught me that we are each capable of more than we think we are, and what I've had fun doing, and would be happy to do with any of your listeners, is to brainstorm about sort of I don't know, just innovative, meaningful ways to fundraise for whatever you're passionate about. Because again, don't make fun of galas and golf tournaments, but they seem to be what every organization does, and a handful of them do it well. Most of them, some of them are break even. Some of them, consume a ton of time. Mine is me and a pair of shoes, and it really doesn't take a lot. And I've helped be part of some really innovative, interesting ways to raise money for everything from domestic violence shelters to legal aid organizations all around the country, just trying to find something different, find out what their membership or their constituency would find interesting and intriguing. And the goal with fundraising, like anything, is how do you get their money out of their pocket and into your organization? And how do you do it with a good return on the investment? If you're going to be
Right.
spending time soliciting it, it's a lot better to get $5,000 than it is to get $50.
Right.
And doing something that seems uh, you know Herculean, like running for 24 hours, tends to attract people more than we're going to do a 5K on the beach or something like that.
So, see if you get the reference. You may not. Would you
Mhm.
ever do a run for rabies?
A run for rabies. I don't get the reference. No.
Okay, it was from The Office. They literally had an episode where,
uh,
it was, we you have to,
like
end
somebody did tell
rabies.
me about that. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
one of the somebody was bitten, and so Michael,
Yeah.
of course, decided to take that on as the cause, and
Yeah.
then
So, donating to science or
didn't he
something
fix it
like
so
that.
that he could win too somehow? It was
Well,
really
he tried to, but then he carbo loaded with, fettuccine right before he ran and came in last, but he survived. It was a great episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's a funny episode, as they
Yeah.
all are, just because it's
I
not
I
like
I love The Office.
rabies
Best
is not.
best show.
I mean, I could be wrong. So somebody can reach out to me at Free to Laugh if they'd like to, but I don't think rabies is like a huge cause that we need to support. It's a bad
Yeah, I
thing.
clearly we need to raise money for science and medicine for rabies.
We've got a cure for rabies, I
Race for
think.
the cure, yes. So, Michael, thank you so much for joining. Again, if you want to find him, this is Freed R, that can't even spell, Freed, to laugh, Freed to run, and this is how you find him. And a really great guy. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a lot of fun.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.